said, Ma, does people really live like that? And she said to me, you will. When you have money, people move aside. Real estate investors, we make our money when everyone else is suffering. And I'm not saying I'm proud of that, but the reality is somebody's going to make it. Why shouldn't it be you?
Welcome back to Real Estate and Chill. I'm your host, Kevin Iglesias, associate real estate broker. As always, it's $1 million episode. We got the man himself, 30 plus years real estate investor. Let's give a round of applause for Dan Borrero. Let's go.
Yeah, that's an awesome.
Come on, we gotta shoot the money gun for that. Drove an hour and a half to get here. I appreciate it, man. And you got here early, which I'm like, damn.
Yeah. Like I said, I wasn't sure if I was gonna make it on time, so I figured I'd leave a little early.
Time is money.
Yes.
If you could give us a brief, introduction to who you are, how long you've been doing this, obviously 30 plus years.
Yeah.
A little bit about your story, please.
I'm Dan Borrero. I've been a real estate investor since 1989. Bought my first building in Fort Greene, Brooklyn for $72,000, two-family home.
I wish you could find that now.
I still own the property, and it's probably worth about 2.5. That was my first property. The second property I bought about a year and a half later. Still own that property as well. It's in Park Slope, Brooklyn. It's a 4-family with 2 storefronts. And it's just, since then, we just accumulated a lot more properties in Brooklyn. Then we went over to Jersey. And then we've also, we own a lot in Central Florida as well as in Northern Florida.
So let me ask you a question. 30 plus years, but what motivated you to start real estate investing? Money's always calling. That's probably another deal right there. So what made you get started? Like, what made you invest and make that move? Like, what light bulb went off and said, all right, this is what I got to do?
So, there's a lot of different things in my life I could say contributed to that light bulb, right? Because there were multiple light bulbs that went off. I remember I didn't grow up with wealth, but I grew up in a really clean home. There was 8 of us, 8 kids living with my mother and my dad in a very small apartment in Brooklyn, actually in Fort Greene, across the street from the projects. But we were poor, but I didn't know we were poor, if that makes sense. Until one day I was watching TV, and it was black and white. That's what it was back then. And, I see some guy coming out in the morning, going to his car, and his wife is handing him his hat, his coffee, his newspaper, and I could only assume it was a white picket fence because it's a black and white TV, right? With nice grass and going into a nice car. And I asked my mom, I said, Ma, does people really live like that? And she said to me, you will. And I don't think, I was maybe like 7 years old, and my mother to this day doesn't remember that conversation. But I remember it like it was yesterday because it was that aha moment, right? And then there were other things that happened during the course of my life that, made me realize that without wealth, there's no power, right? Wealth provides not only power, but a lot more respect when you demand something, right? Doesn't matter what color skin you have, doesn't matter what your sex orientation is, doesn't matter what country you come from. When you have money, people move aside, right? I don't know if it's because of fear or the respect of it, but it creates power, and I wanted to be in that position. Now, that doesn't mean you abuse that power, but it does mean that you could swing that big bat, that the money provides when it needs to be done. So,
like, were you working like retail jobs before this? Like, that said, all right, I got to get my foot in the door. You know what I mean? Like $72,000 back then was a lot of money.
Yeah,
right?
It was. I mean, it was, but not for those that were prepared. So I'll give you an example. I actually bought that property from Greenpoint Savings Bank. It was a foreclosure. There's a funny story. I had a video store, and I was walking up the corner to go to the hardware store to get a doorknob, and I see a for sale sign on this building. And I had been saving for a few years already. So I run back down the corner, I grab a paper and pen. We didn't have cell phones. And I write down the number, and I run back down the corner to call from my store, my video store. And the guy's name was Steven Sirota. So he says to me, I could have sold that building 10 times over, but I can't get into the building. Tenants won't let me in. He said, but the price is $115,000. But you're going to have to make an offer without looking at the inside of the building. So I says, all right, I'll call you back. So I walk back up the corner and I knock on the door, and on the second floor. And because it's there's no hallways, it's a pre-war construction. The ground floor apartment is underneath the stairs on the exterior. So similar to a brownstone. So I walk in, who opens up the door is a guy I used to play basketball with in the schoolyard when I was a kid. So I'm like, I said, bro, his name is Pablo. I said, Pablo, what's going on? I said, look, I want to buy this building, man, but they said that you don't let nobody in. He goes, I'll let you in, So it's a 2-floor apartment with 14-foot ceilings. It's got 3 bedrooms upstairs with a full bath. It had no bathroom on the first floor, but it had a huge dining room, huge living room with a small kitchen. And he had broken up this apartment to 17 rooms, bro. He was getting $100 a week from each room. All right?
Okay.
He was making money, right? So I said to him, but bro, why don't you let nobody in? He goes, I don't want him to sell the building. And he said, but they offered me $3,000 to leave. So I said, you willing to leave? He says, yeah, I'll leave. I says, when I have to leave, but I ain't gonna, and I'll take the $3,000. So I says, all right. Who lives downstairs? He goes, oh, you know him too. So we walk downstairs, knock on the door. I knew that person too. Shows me the whole place. So now I go back down the corner. I call Steven Sirota. I said, Steve. I said, Mr. Sirota, I got into the place. I want to buy it. What do we do next? He says, you got in? He goes, I'll meet you in front of the building in 5 minutes. So I get there. And he says, well, how'd you get in? I said, well, I knocked on the door. And he goes, and they opened up for you? And I said, yeah. I said, I don't understand what the problem is, but okay. So he says to me, well, you got to give me an offer. I says, well, how does that work? He says, well, how much do you want to pay? So at the time, my girlfriend, who's now my wife, was walking out of her house across the street. And the house number on her address was 72.
No way.
No.
What the?
So she's coming out. I look at her. I look at him, and I said 72,000. So I didn't know anything about comps. I didn't know anything about renovation. I didn't know anything about anything. But I know I want this building. So he says, all right, I'll call you back. So he calls me the next day, and he says, they accepted your offer.
Wow.
So I said, okay, so what now? He says, well, you got to give me your attorney's number. I said, why do I need an attorney? So he literally held my hand through the whole process. The mortgage, and Greenpoint Savings gave me the mortgage.
Wow.
Right? But this is the kicker. It was 6 points at 17.9% interest.
Yeah, but at 72,000, I mean, I guess back then that's a lot.
It was a lot of money.
Yeah, back
remember, neither tenant was paying rent, and the place was a wreck.
But what blows my mind is that you were literally going to the hardware store to pick up a doorknob. You see a for sale sign.
Yes.
And that was a door that you were meant to open. Was that property right there?
Without a doubt. And what I tell people all the time is, look, if I had not been mentally prepared for the risk, if I had not been mentally prepared knowing I had to save for the opportunity when it arose, I would have never been able to take advantage of that opportunity.
It's smart. And it's true. You have to be willing to, to dive in the water to see how deep it is. If not, you'll never swim.
No, and I got lucky with that. It went very well. The second building I bought almost put me in bankruptcy.
Really?
Because I wasn't prepared. But what I learned in those 5 years of trying to get out of that hole, I've made millions and millions of dollars from it. So what I tell people is, we're going to make mistakes, and real estate is extremely forgiving if you stay the course and hold the line. But the lessons learned will provide you the opportunity to make hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars later on.
So you were fighting bankruptcy on that property for 5 years?
Man, I got robbed by everybody, my mortgage broker, the realtor, all my contractors. I got robbed so bad by my contractors, they should be locked up. I don't know if I'd be able to hold myself back from not running them over if I saw them today. You
never ran into them again after that? I mean, Brooklyn, it's big, but
I've made it my business trying not to, because I don't know if I'd be able to have held my temper, especially when you're younger, right? Now it's a different story.
Yeah.
But thinking back, even the tenants that I got stuck with there, man, they schooled me. They beat me up. But I learned so much with that one building that it literally propelled me to where I am today with the lessons learned. So if I had to do it all over again, I'd do it the same exact way.
What lessons did you learn from that property?
One, how to vet my contractors, trust but always verify, get multiple estimates, how to make sure that the scope of work is extremely detailed on the bids and the estimates, or even the contracts, like down to what size screws you're going to use on my sheetrock. How thick is that sheetrock going to be? Whether it's going to be 5/8 or 1/2 inch. Is it going to be 4x12 sheets or 4x8 sheets? Even down to the type of compound they're going to use, the mesh tape they're going to use, the flooring they're going to use, the color paint, the moldings. I mean, I want specific details. Insulation, for instance, I'm a proponent of using R19 on the walls, right? Sometimes you can't get away with that because your study may be 2x3s that maybe have existed already, or maybe you got to stay with the 2x3s. There's different reasons for that. I love to use 2x4s, but when I've walked on a job and I see them putting R13, I'm like, yeah, I'm not paying you for that. And they're like, what do you mean? And he says, well, I says, look at the scope of work in the estimate, right? In the contract. It's specifically written R19, not going to pay you for R13. Well, I'll discount it. I said, not interested in discount. I'm interested in providing quality living environment for my tenants. So, if I use that R13, you're going to give me a discount today, but my tenants are going to have to pay more in heat and air conditioning because there's less insulation, which is going to create a more of a vacancy rate, right? Because their utility bills are too high. Not interested in that. Do it the right way or you don't get paid, right? So even down to how we pay our contractors, deposit monies, and most of the time I will not pay a contractor deposit money because the way I do it is I have the material on the job. So there's no money out of pocket. Complete 50% of the work, you get 25% of the pay.
So I just want to stop you right there. So you buy all the material for all your jobs?
I do.
Because I know a lot of investors who like, all right, give me basically an all-in price.
Correct.
And here's my credit card. You go shop for the material, give me the receipts, et cetera, et cetera. But you buy all the material for your work.
I buy all materials for several reasons. And again, that's what works for me. There's a lot of guys that I have a lot of respect for in this business that do it exactly how you said it. And that's what works for them. But I'll tell you what happened to me with that second building. I go to refinance the building literally 3 years after I bought the building. I need money. I need to finish this job because we took on more than we could handle, and we added another whole floor to the building, adding 2 more apartments. I wasn't prepared for that. I didn't have the knowledge. But again, I made a lot of mistakes, and I needed money to get out of this hole. So I go to Greenpoint Savings Bank. I said, I need to refinance this. And they said, we'll give it to you, but you have a lien on this property that you need to satisfy. And I was like, well, what's the lien? And when I look at it, when the title company sends me what the lien is, it was for roofing material that was delivered and installed. But I paid the contractor for that.
So basically a mechanic's lien they put.
That's right. But the company that supplied the roofing material never got paid. So they put the lien against my property. Mm-hmm. When I go looking for the roofer, he went out of business. He's still in business, but under a different name, different identity. So even though I sued him, I wasn't able to get the money because he didn't personally sign on behalf of his name on his contract. He signed on behalf of the company that is no longer in existence. So now I started buying the material to make sure that didn't happen again. Fast forward, what I started realizing was I'm getting huge discounts now. My plumbing supply house is giving me discounts. My electrical supply house is giving me discounts. My lumber supply house is giving me discounts because now I'm like the GC. So not only am I getting the material cheaper, not only am I taking these awesome vacations because of the points that are going on my credit card, but I'm controlling the job from beginning to end with the quality of the material that's going in.
So basically all you're paying for now is labor.
Is labor.
And
the labor is always behind. So you get 50% of the work done, you get 25%. You get 75% work done, you get another 25%.
All right, so what does that first week, let's just say you hire a contractor. What does that first week look like? Do you give them, I'm assuming, a deposit or
Never.
At the end of the week?
Never.
So what does it look like?
You get 50% of the work done. It takes you a week. It takes you a month. You get 25% of the work to pay, right? So when they say, well, I need to pay my men, get the job done. You know, if you can't, well, they'll say to me, well, how do I know you're going to pay me? I says, well, I'm not going to pick up my building and take it home with me, right? I can't put it in my pocket. You can put a workman's lien against it. Now, what happens is eventually you start developing a brand, a name, and contractors know you're not. So my contractors, I never screw with them. You know, even my properties in Florida, my expediter goes and sends me the videos my expediters have a list of what to look for, and they send me they send me those pictures and those videos. Right, when that contractor says he's done, he gets paid within 24 hours. The money's in his account. Right, as soon as they pass my expediter's inspection. If there's any minor stuff, we send them the list. You go back, you finish it, you'll get your final payment. But they get paid within 24 hours. That's the one thing we don't mess with. We pay our contractors when we're supposed to.
It's the right thing to do.
Right.
Let me ask you a question though. Whatever happened to that lien though? How did you resolve that problem? Because you needed that money.
Pay it.
Oh, you had to pay it up front.
I had to pay $7,000. You know what? $7,000 to me then was like saying to me $700,000 today.
Wow.
Yeah. It hurt me. It hurt me bad. But I had to pay it.
And then you were able to refinance and take that money out?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, that's one of the lessons learned. Now, again, not a lot of people do it the way I do it. That's fine. It's a lot of on-hand management. You got to make sure you never have more than a day or 2 days of material on the job because, I don't know, it all of a sudden grows legs and disappears, you know. So, you know, there's a lot of management involved with it, to say the least.
So let me ask you a question. Like, obviously you've been burned in the past, right? So it's a financial reason why you do this, but also control, right? Because now you know.
Yeah, we control everything from beginning to end, and it ensures the quality of the end product that we get, that we're putting into the market.
So do you only do buy and holds or you do flips as well?
So I was doing a lot of buy and holds. It took me about 10 years to realize, like, I can't scale as fast as I want to, especially in Brooklyn. The acquisition costs were higher. The down payment was I had to come up with like 30% because I had cash businesses. So I had to go what they call at the time no income verification loans. Today they call DSCR loans. It amazes me how they repackage these things. It's the same
thing. It's the same thing.
Different acronyms, right? And try to make it look like, oh, this is what the rich people do. No, everybody does it. So, you know, I wasn't able to scale. So I ended up going to Florida at the bequest of my brother-in-law, who was on me for about 3 years, every Thanksgiving. So I go out there reluctantly, and I end up in a place called Cape Coral. And I buy, between my father and my brother David and I, we bought 10 lots for $3,000 a piece. I bought them reluctantly.
So $30,000 all in.
Yeah. This was like, I would say like around 98, right? And we did a deal in Brooklyn with another vacant lot. We started then buying lots through the auctions when the city was used to pretty much, you could buy them cheap, you know, especially in my area because everybody was too scared to go down there, right? So we were buying them, and I did a deal where we made like another $30,000. I was like, man, this is good. 6 months later, so my brother and my father were like, I said, look, I'm going to go back to Cape Coral. I'm going to buy 10 more lots. Let's see what happens. It's only $3,000 a piece. But when I went back, there was $6,000.
Doubled.
Yes. I said to the realtor, I says, I don't understand. How does this double in 6 months? Didn't make no sense. So we drove to a new high school they just finished building. And when I say we drove about 20 minutes down this road, we were going about, it was called Del Prado Boulevard. And we went about 20 minutes at about 40 miles an hour. Not one house, not one business. It was just the middle of nowhere. She said, come back here 5 years from now, there'll be not one lot available. Sure enough, that's exactly what happened. So we started selling those lots. I actually went back, called my wife, and I said to her, transfer such and such money into this account. Back then, she said I have to go to the bank and move. And then from that account, I took out a bank check and gave the realtor another check as deposit money for 6 more lots that we were buying at $6,000 that I put under my daughter's names. And believe it or not, that's how I paid for their college. So I started selling the lots when they went up to like in the 30s. And the last ones I sold were like 45,000. And when we did that within 4 or 5 years, I was like, there's a business here. And we just started buying lots like crazy. We were moving about 10,000 lots a month.
10,000 lots a month?
Yeah, my brother and I were moving 10,000 lots a month. I'm talking about beepers now. I'm sorry, because I had the beeper business. We were moving about 1,500 lots a month. And I would say 500 of those were retail, 1,000 were wholesale. And the way we would do it with the 1,000 was I would add $500 to each lot. And we would sell them in bulk to other investors that were selling it to other investors, right? So we had a whole team. We had a team just for acquisition, and then we had the team just for sales. And that went on until 2008.
When the market crashed?
When the market crashed. But we kind of saw it coming in 2006. So we started holding back on the purchases. We still got stuck with 160 lots, but that was okay because it was all profit money. We had all our own money out. And because we saw it coming, we had paid off all of our personal mortgages on personal homes, our car, our credit card debt.
It's a blessing.
Yeah. So, but our income did go down about 75% because we didn't have the flips anymore on the land, right? But we were taking all that money we were making in land, paying the taxes on it, and coming back to New York and buying long-term hold deals. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We didn't take that money to buy a new house or pool,
Yeah. You reinvested it back into the game.
Put it right back in, and that's how we started then to scale back in New York.
So were you doing like what, 1031 exchanges or just using the gain? No,
couldn't do 1031s because I was flipping these lots within 30 days.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's quick.
Yeah. If I had more than 30 days in my inventory, I was mad.
And this is what, Cape Coral, you said?
Well, no. That's where we sharpened our skills, and then we just started going all over the state, wherever we thought the population growth was coming.
And so you're responsible for a lot of those properties now that have been built.
Oh, I drive by properties with my brother. It was like, oh, we used to own that lot. We used to own this one too. Some of them I can't remember.
But imagine you holding on to those lots today. What could they?
I couldn't have held on to them, but because it's only so much money, right? There's not an infinite amount of money. But I did hold on to them because I still own the properties I bought as a result of selling those lots.
Gotcha.
So we still created the wealth because we didn't misspend the money. We didn't buy consumer items. We put it right back into the business.
Now, so you reinvested all the money, right? Did you ever go as far as financing? Like you said, there was like DSCR loans, no banks. Did you ever go like the hard money route to scale?
That was pretty much hard money if you think about it.
Well,
right?
private lending, yeah.
Because we were paying, let's say the mortgages at the time were about 15 and a half. I was paying 17 and a half because I was going with no income verification. Greenpoint Savings Bank was the hard money lender to people like me at the time. Eventually what happened was, this is funny, when I needed money, nobody would lend me money. Now, when you don't need money, everybody wants to throw it at you. But what I've realized was, through a friend of mine, Chris Haskins, back in 2019, he said to me, why are you not using private money? And I said, well, because I feel like I'm going out with hat in hand. He said to me, no, you're doing people a favor. You're providing them an income higher than they're going to get at the bank, secured against an asset and with your expertise. When he put it to me that way, I said, man, you're right. So now I do have a list of people that we could just call if we need money quickly. I never pay more than 6.5%. And I'm not incurring all the closing costs that we would normally incur. The mortgage is recorded against the property to make sure these people are secured. God forbid I should die tomorrow, my estate will pay them out, right, based on their security. So the biggest thing is, keep your word. And even if you don't make money on a deal, you make sure your investors get paid every single time.
Let me ask you a question. What's like the pros and cons of using hard money? Because I feel like a lot of people are not educated.
Look, hard money lenders, They make a ton of money. If you're not managing that job right, they're going to walk away with more money than you did, which is a lot. A lot of times that's what happens, especially for newbies. But the reality is, if you're a newbie and you don't have the money, sometimes you got to go that route. But I'll give you an example. There's an individual that he's under my mentorship class. His name is Jose. I won't give his last name for obvious reasons. And he's done 6 fix and flips. He's made about $900,000 between the 6 of them. They were very small jobs. None of them were over $350,000. And he keeps going back to the same hard money lender, and he's paying about 11% right now. So I was just speaking to him on another one that he's looking at taking down, and he's telling me he's going to go over a hard money lender for the whole 350, plus he's going to the hard money lender for the 70,000 he's going to need in renovations. But since he has a history with this hard money lender, he's willing to do that with him, right? But he's paying 11% with 4 points.
4 points?
4 points.
Damn, that's high.
Who you telling? So I said to him, Jose, I know you've made $900,000. Assuming you've paid $400 to the government in taxes.
600.
You have $500,000. Why are you not self-financing your own deal, keeping that 11% for your own profit, as well as the 4 points? He says, no, you don't understand. He goes, I went on vacation for a month with my wife and my kids. I bought my new Harley. I bought this. So, in his case, the man's out there doing the work, finding the deals, putting it together all the right way. But what he's not doing is the most important part.
Reinvesting it back?
Reinvesting. Especially in the beginning. You got to live like you're poor. If you're making $100,000, you should be living like you made 25. You got to live like you're poor.
Now, because a lot of people, let's just say they don't know what we're talking about, like points. That's what the lender's charging him at the closing table.
Absolutely.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
11%, what? That's 11% that they're, let's just say 350, 11% is what, like 3,500, let's just say, plus what, the 70,000.
Well, it's actually more than 350 because it's at 420.
Oh, because of the 70,000. But that 70,000 acts like a line of credit.
He's still paying interest on that line of credit.
Okay.
Plus, he rolled in his closing costs to the deal.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
So he's at around 460.
All in.
All in.
So we're talking about like a monthly payment of 46 and change.
Correct. Now, if he doesn't bring that job in 3 months and closes within 2 months after that, he's losing money.
What does that property, let's just say, sell for?
If I got a probably in the low 7s, but remember, now you got your closing costs. You got to pay your real estate fees.
Yep. Let's just say, give or take 4, right? On top of the 460.
Yeah. Well, let's assume he's going to pay both sides.
Right.
Right. You're looking at another 30, 40,000 in closing costs.
It's 460, so like 500 or so in, and that's if he sells it at 7.
So he needs to move quick on this.
Yeah.
Especially because we don't know where the market's going.
The election's right around the corner.
Right. We don't know, if they're talking about lowering interest rates, everyone thinks that's great. And I'm saying, well, let's see what they lower. If they lower it 0.5 point, that scares the living hell out of me. That means we're coming into a recession. Actually, it should scare the living hell out of most Americans. To me, I'm like, bring it. I'm loving it. Because I've been stockpiling cash waiting for the opportunity.
Right. So you're just waiting for the right time to buy more.
I'm waiting for the downturn. Look, the reality is, real estate investors, we make our money when everyone else is suffering. Right? And I'm not saying I'm proud of that, but the reality is somebody's going to make it. Why shouldn't it be you? But the only way you're going to make that money when the opportunities present themselves is if you're financially ready, educationally ready, mentally ready, and physically ready. You got to be ready, guys. If you're not ready, you're done.
All right, so let me ask you a question, because right now, I mean, Long Island-wise, right, what we're dealing with here is no inventory. So regardless what the rates were, like in the high 7s, 8s.
You still have business.
Exactly. We were still seeing bidding wars happen on certain houses if they were priced right. Mm. People still paying 30, 50, 60, 70,000 over asking. Now that the rates are trickling down, they're like, what, 6.3-ish, 6.4-ish. It's just happening even more. Like,
But your buyers, they're not buying a house. They're buying the money.
Right. They're buying the monthly payment. Right. That's what they're looking at. But I feel like if 6.3, let's just say they go down to 0.5, I feel like the market's going to go crazy.
So what'll happen is it all depends. Right. But what I think may happen is on average, every time there's a point dropped, depending on the region, prices of homes go up between 12 and 17%. That's number one. Number two, Harris just proposed a bill. She wants to propose a bill if she becomes president to give, people $25,000, assuming they fit within the parameters, right? So now you're giving people who don't have $25,000 on their own to go buy a house, who are now getting free money, that are going to put even more of an excess strain on inventory that doesn't exist. What do you think is going to happen between the $25,000 grant they're getting and the interest rates going up? What's going to happen to those prices of the houses?
What, they're going to go down?
Oh, they're going to go way up.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you have more buyers because of the 25,000.
Right. More money.
And you have lower interest rates, which is trying to encourage people to buy. But the price is going up. They're not really saving anything.
And that's why I tell people all the time, you can't time the market. It's all about your time in the market. Like people always say, oh, I'm waiting for the rates to drop. And they've been waiting years and still haven't purchased any real estate. You know what I mean?
Do you know what the best deals I've ever made in my life is? Take a wild guess. What do you think the interest rates were on the best deals I ever made in my life?
All right, so my parents bought in 2004, we moved out here, right? So, and their interest rate was like 12%. House price, I don't know, it was like maybe high twos, maybe around there.
Okay.
I'm assuming in the higher interest rate market.
The best deals I've ever made are deals that I've made when interest rates were above 10%. Because everyone's afraid of them.
I was going to say, because most people don't want to buy.
Which in my mind is mind-boggling. I'm like, there's so much less competition.
But that's why it's so true when people say the interest rate does not matter. It's all about the deal.
It's all about the deal. If the numbers make sense, you go for it. Yeah. If the numbers made sense at 14%, why in God's name wouldn't they make sense when the rates dropped to 8% and just refinance? Now, the kicker with the refinancing, where I see a lot of people make mistakes, is they get money rich. They get mentally money rich, but they're spiritually poor. What do I mean by that? They bought the property for $200 when the rates were, let's say, 8%. Let's use simplistic numbers.
Right.
Now the rates go up, the rates come down to 6%. But because the rates are down 6% and they've had the property 3 years, the property's worth $400. So they go to the bank and they say, hey, bank, I want $300,000. I want to refinance this at $300,000. Bank says, sure, no problem. Right? Because you still got 25% in, right? Now they take that $100,000, what they do with it?
Spend it on cars, jewelry, vacations. Yeah.
None of that's making you money.
No.
Now, what happens when you have a problem with two tenants? Let's say it's a 4-family house and you have a problem with 2 tenants.
They're not paying. Now you're responsible for the mortgage.
That's right. So what I tell people to do is, and the way I've done it is, case in point, that first building. I had all into that first building with my renovation costs and my down payment, like $50,000. When the rates dropped to 14%, when I was able to get a mortgage for 14% 3 years later, I went back to the same bank and I said, I want to refinance. Bank says, well, we could give you 110. I said, I don't want 110. I want the 50,000 that I have in. So I took only the 50,000 at 14%. I never refinanced that loan again. I paid it off, I think it was 12 years. So now I take that 50,000 and I use that as my next down payment on another building. My original money. But if I had a tenant that wasn't paying me rent, I was good because my mortgage wasn't on a principal amount of 100,000. It was based on the 50,000. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. It's a lower.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
smart.
Yeah. There's different multiple ways of doing this. And because the cash flow was so much higher and I didn't need that cash flow because I had my business that was providing me for my living expenses, I kept just putting that cash flow, making believe I didn't have it. It just kept going into a savings account that was earmarked with that company's name. And when I had enough of a down payment, then I would go buy another building with it. So the buildings themselves kept helping me buy additional buildings, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, of course. And that's the way you should be doing it.
Right. So could I have afforded to be driving back then I was driving a Cavalier, Chevy Cavalier, with about 150,000 miles. Could I have afforded to be driving a brand new Mercedes? Yes, I could have. But I wasn't living that way because I was growing my business. You know, you got to feed your business first before you feed yourself. I tell people that all the time. Eventually, your business is going to feed every single one of your wants. But you got to feed the business first.
Being 30 plus years, do you say that's the biggest mistake people make? Is that they want to feed themselves first?
Yeah.
They want to flaunt. They want to look like they got the money.
Absolutely.
I'm successful now. And then their business fails because of that.
Absolutely. You're flaunting before you could afford it. Right? Every time, you know, I just bought myself a truck 2 years. This truck I've wanted since high school. I've always wanted the type of a truck.
The truck outside?
Yeah. And I just literally treated myself when I turned 60.
You 60, bro?
60.
All right, you don't look 60 at all.
Thank you.
I thought you were like in 41, 42.
Oh no, bro. I'm gonna keep this part of it and show it to my wife. Yeah, I treated myself when I was 60, but why didn't I do that? Because I'm thinking, damn, I'm gonna spend 80 grand on a truck. I go buy myself another condo in Florida with that, and create $600-700 a month in revenue, plus the valuation of the property going up. But eventually, you got to say, you know what, you can't
live
take
a little
it with you, man.
Yeah, you got to live a little. But you know what? You're so disciplined, right? Because you have that business mindset that you're like, this 80,000, I could use this to buy more assets instead of a liability. But again, like you said, you can't take it with you. You gotta splurge a little bit. You gotta have fun.
I'm not going to kid you. I am starting to enjoy life.
Yeah,
yeah. But it took me a long time to do that. You know, I have 4 kids. All 4 of my kids graduated with no debt. So one of the things I tell people most, especially entrepreneurs, I don't care what business you're in, whoever you choose to be your spouse, you need to have some deep, deep conversations before you take that final step. You know, what's going to make you feel rich? What's your goals in life? You know, you got any student debt? Because I don't have any, and I don't want to get married to you to pay your debt. You know, these are tough conversations. But one of the things that, you know, my wife and I discussed was, one of the things that will make us feel wealthy if our kids could graduate with no debt. And we achieved that.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And that made us feel wealthy. But then when the kids were gone, we were like, damn, we got all this extra money left over every month. Now, what is it that we want to do? You know?
That's awesome.
You know, figure out what's going to make you feel rich and then put that up on your vision board, I would say. A lot of people need vision boards or set up your goals. I tell people all the time, you know, everybody has a goal, but if you don't have a plan on how to execute that goal, it's worthless, right? So make sure you have a plan that's going to execute that goal.
Let me ask you a question, though. You did a lot of refinances. What made you not go like the HELOC route?
I eventually did do the HELOC route after I had like 10 or 12 properties. I don't recommend that for everybody because that's your personal home. You know, that's where your family lives, your kid lives. So at this point, I don't have a mortgage on my properties, on my personal home. I do have a HELOC, and it's a substantial amount. But I don't ever use it with the exception of using it like a bridge loan. So I'll give you an example. Let's say we're all in, we have all our money out in the street and, you know, in brick and mortar, renovating properties, waiting to fix and flip a property or waiting to get it done so I could refinance it and take back my original investment, right? But now another opportunity presents itself. And let's say it's a $400,000 acquisition cost. All right, cool. But I need $200,000 to renovate it. No problem. I have a plan on how I'm going to use my HELOC to acquire it because I'm coming in with cash, so it's going to give me a better negotiating tactic as far as acquiring that property at a lower amount, right? Because it's subject to no mortgage. And I've already got all my service providers, my contractors lined up the day we close, they're in there, right? I've already got a plan of how I'm going to pay that loan back within 6 months. And I don't have one plan, I have 2 plans, minimal, right? Sometimes it doesn't work out that way, but I never go more than a year with it. So I'm going to refinance that property when it's all said and done, take back my initial $600,000, pay back my loan. Now I have no money into the business, into that building at all. None of my own money. But the building's now worth $1 million. So I got $400,000 equity. My rents are going to pay back the $600,000. And if I should have problems with a few tenants, I'm okay because my mortgage is not at $900,000, even though it's worth $1 million. It's only at $600,000.
I mean, and that's the correct way, right? You use that HELOC to make you, for another investment, pull that money out, and then you have that equity.
But I got to tell you, I'm really greedy. So I don't even want to give the money to interest for the HELOC. So I try to always use my own money. I know people say you crazy using your own money. I'm like, why? So you making the bank rich, and I'm making myself wealthier because I'm the bank. Have you ever walked into a bank headquarters?
Not recently.
Okay. They always have the nicest mahogany, the nicest granite counters, the most expensive couches, the most expensive flooring, and all that money comes from us. So I want to be the bank for my own properties.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I mean, you have the opportunity, obviously the money to do it. Why not?
Right. But that doesn't happen overnight.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, 30 plus years. How many properties altogether as far as portfolio?
I don't really like giving numbers. I'll tell you why. Because people get fixated on that.
On like the doors?
Yeah. And my argument is you shouldn't be fixated on doors. You should be fixated on quality, right?
The cash flow?
Right. So I'll give you an example. I was at an event about 2 years ago. Somebody was talking to me. He was very boisterous and happy that he had 150 doors. So I asked him, I said, bro, what is that giving you a month? He said, I'm doing great, man. I'm doing about 16,000.
16,000
a month.
From 150 doors?
Right. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's not a lot for 150 doors.
Right. But he's heavy with the loans. This is after he pays his loans, right? So I tell him he's doing great. So my brother, as we walking away, says to me, why'd you tell him he's doing great? I said, because he's so happy and he's not experienced enough to know that he's doing poorly. So I have a property in Park Slope, another property from what I described earlier, that's four apartments with 2 stores. And I make $16,000 a month from 6 doors, right? So who's doing better?
Nah, you are, of course.
Right. So the amount of doors is irrelevant. It's the quality of the doors that matters.
I agree. I totally agree. Look, 150 doors, to anybody, perception is reality. So it's a huge accomplishment. I mean, the fact that he was able to take the risk and dive in it's a big accomplishment. But it's got to make sense as well financially. 150 doors, you would assume a 6-figure, a month at least from 150 doors,
depending on where it's at, right?
Right.
This is in Arkansas, so it's not. It's not.
Okay, so the rent, yeah,
right. But it's still, it didn't make sense for the risk he's taking, the management of the managers. It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of
work.
It's a lot of work,
and it's a lot of risk.
A big risk because it's all majority finance, right? Correct. So God forbid anything goes south, domino effect.
You're done. Your history.
Yeah.
Right. So, I tell people all the time, like when I'm doing a fix and flip, the one thing I look at is not only the gross amount that I'm going to make, what's my real dollars after taxes?
Let me ask you a question though, because I feel like you're the type of guy that's very strategic. So you always got to have an exit route, right? So you look at it as like, all right, I fix and flip, but worst case scenario, if I have to, I can rent it and it makes this amount.
Exactly. Okay. So if it doesn't make sense on both ends of that stick, I won't touch it.
You won't touch it.
Yeah, because I don't ever know where the market's going to be. This market, as a result of technology, changes quickly.
Well, they say the market cycles, right? So the market went up in 2020 as soon as COVID hit. We're 2024 about to go into 2025. Market cycles every 6-7 years?
It's supposed to, but it hasn't happened the way it's supposed to.
I know.
Think about that.
It's true.
I mean, I've been buying. I got back deep into the market in 2009.
After the crash.
Oh my God, I was buying condos communities that were selling for $350, I was buying them for $25,000 from the bank.
Oh my gosh.
And I still own them. I love the fact, I love saying I still own them, brother.
Because most people don't. Most people lose those properties.
Right. What I was doing was my brother and I, we would we would buy them, renovate them. Most of the time we didn't need to do much. Sometimes we did. But for every 3 condos, I was able to buy one cash because the prices were going up.
Right.
Right. So even when they were at 100,000, when they went up to 100,000, for every 3 I was renovating and flipping, I would pay my portion of the taxes, and then I would take the difference and go buy a condo for cash. So all our inventory, Florida, is no debt.
So, and you were doing what, the BRRRR strategy?
No BRRRR.
No BRRRR.
I actually started that with my home equity line because at the time in 2009, the banks weren't giving us any money. Got
it. Okay. So you was taking advantage of a HELOC.
Correct.
What's your opinion on the whole BRRRR strategy? I see a lot of people that are not using it correctly or not doing it right.
Listen, I love it, man. The BRRRR strategy is an awesome strategy. It's funny. Well, the BRRRR strategy is an awesome strategy as long as you hit every single level of the strategy point on. If you don't buy that property right, you're done. You ain't going to be able to refinance.
Can't buy high.
No. If you didn't bring in the renovations at the right number, you're done.
If you overspend on the reno.
If you didn't bring that property to market in a timely basis, your carrying cost is going to bring you to the point where you're done.
You got to not bring it to the market at a slower time. It's got to be hot.
Right? And then you got to hit the market at the right time to get it rented, to create the right amount of cash flow for the banks to say, you know what, we're going to lend you more. So if you don't hit all of those steps in perfect sync, the BRRRR strategy is not going to work for you. You're going to be screwed. Right? So I don't recommend people hoping on that or counting on that unless you have some experience.
Okay. Anything that you can leave us off with as far as like when you're investing, what should you look out for? Like Drew Bernard, he gave us the poor man's analysis. He looks at like a Starbucks, right? He sees a Starbucks. If there's a Starbucks being built in the community, he's like, this is where I need to invest because money's coming this way.
So I look at it, don't ever reinvent the wheel, right? So we do a lot of research in areas with expected population growth, the educational level, the income level, how many cars are in the family, how many people per family. But there's certain things that I can't do. For instance, Walmart. You mentioned that earlier. Walmart. When I buy land in areas that are somewhat rural. But I buy land in areas that have indications that they're going to be growing in population. And one of those indications is if they build a Walmart, a supercenter, like, think about it. Who's building brick and mortar today, right? But if Walmart's building a brick and mortar, and then I see a Taco Bell down the corner going up or pulling permits to build, and then I see that McDonald's is also pulling a permit a mile down the road, and then I see a Dollar Tree store, or they spend millions of dollars figuring this out. Who am I to reinvent the wheel? Right? When I first started this business, we didn't have access to what we have today on the internet. So what I learned this from somebody who taught me a lot, actually, not what he said, but the way he lived his life. And he said, go buy one share of Walmart. I said, why? He says, every year they send you their perspective, where they're going to build, what areas they're looking to expand in. And that's where you go buy.
Damn. I didn't know that. That's free game.
So I bought, to this day, I still own that one share. Not because I need the perspectives, because everything's on the internet, but because it just reminds me of where I started, right? I look at DOT, Department of Transportation, for the state, and I see what roads are being funded, what roads are getting widened, and why they're being funded. I don't care if it's because they want to create an evacuation route, right? When that road gets widened, it creates commerce, right? And then I look at what the township or the county is doing as far as tax incentives for new businesses to come in, right? And then one of the things I tell people all the time, I don't care what your political affiliation is, right? make sure you are on the email list for every single political leader in your area, whether it be House of Representatives, whether it be your council member, your senator, your state assembly person, your governor, because whenever something happens, whether they voted for that, whether they were for it or not, if it's good for the community, they're going to send you an email boasting what they did for it. Now I know what's coming. Guess what I'm doing? I'm buying. Right? Now, all this is public knowledge. This is all even comes out in local newspapers. But who reads it? Nobody. The other thing I tell people is go to community board meetings. Just sit there. Now it's all on Zoom. You don't even have to leave your house. Most times you're just sitting there. So when Bruce Ratner was wanted to develop Metrotech, are you familiar with Metrotech
Not
downtown?
so much.
That's right on the other side of, where the Barclays Center is?
Yes.
That was the brainchild of Bruce Ratner. He would send his architects and he would send his attorneys to argue at the community board why they needed to rezone a certain property and what his intent was. So I would know what was coming 5 years before it came. And I would go by. I wasn't cheating. I just went to the community board and sat in the back and listened. They have those meetings every single month. It doesn't cost anything. Those are the simple tricks that Jude was talking about.
No, that's amazing. Like I said, it's always good to hear from OGs in the game.
Yeah.
And you guys do a lot of mentorship, a lot of teaching.
We do.
Where can people subscribe and get into the mentorship?
So for me, I do a mentorship every single Wednesday night, and it's absolutely free.
It's free.
It's free. I don't charge anything for it. It's my opportunity to pay it back, man. And I'm having a really good time doing it. I just finished my 105th episode.
Wow.
And we just created a video library of all our episodes. So if you miss a class, you could always go back and review it at your convenience. And you could just go to danielborrerojr.com and just click on the link and sign up. It's free to sign up. It's free to attend. You'll get an email on Tuesday night with the Zoom link and with the lesson plan and with a document for you to write your notes on. So you can follow the lesson plan. Hopefully people use that and save it to go back to it, for referral, as a reference. And then you'll get another email on Wednesday reminding you about the class.
I have not been on, but I'm going to sign up.
Oh, brother, I hope to see you there next week.
I'll sign up. Two things I want to leave off with. What's one thing that you think real estate investors should be doing right now, whether they're seasoned or they just want to get into it, and one thing that they should not be doing right now?
I don't think you should be buying because you're anxious. The worst thing for anybody is to buy because they feel like they're missing out. You got to be in this environment you got to be like a sniper, right? Like
calculated.
Yeah. In 2009, I was just shooting at everything because I could take everything down. Whatever I touched, I was going to make money. In this market, you got to be extremely calculating, be a sniper, and shoot only at the specific property that you're going to make money on, right? Be patient. Your opportunity will present, but you have to be prepared.
Okay. I feel like I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours, man. So much wealth, so much knowledge. Again, you drove an hour and a half out. I appreciate you coming. It's an honor, to have somebody your stature here.
And I got to tell you, it's an honor to be here. And I thank you for the invitation, man. Of
course. Where can people reach out to you as far as Instagram?
Just go to USA Land Ventures or just go to Daniel Borrero Jr. and everything will come up. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I have a great YouTube channel. And of course, if you go to danielborrerojr.com, it'll bring you to my link and has everything there everything's on one link. My website, my all my social media, everything.
Anything else? Anything else that you want to leave us off with? I mean, you gave us a lot. No, but anything else?
No, look, I'm just gonna for people that are young out there, take your time, learn. Before I tell people, this is the biggest thing I try to tell people: crawl before you walk. Walk before you run, and run before you sprint, right? You don't want to go from the crawl into the sprint because then you're going to fall into the same problems that I had. The best part about the technology that we have today, that what took me 35 years to accumulate, should take somebody no less than 10 years now. Because of the technology that, there's information out here for absolutely free, right? There's a lot to learn for free. Avoid the mistakes that I made by gathering the information.
And don't wait too long, right? No. I feel like people are just that fear. it's preventing them from taking that risk.
The fear comes though from lack of knowledge, I think.
Oh, 100%. I agree. But I think also, like me personally, when I bought my first property, I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want mom, dad, or brother in my ear saying, don't do this. It needs a lot of work. The house needed work. I knew that. I drove by in the morning, afternoon, at night. It was literally, there was addicts living in the home. But I saw the potential in the area. I was already in the business for a couple of years. I was like, no, this is only going to go up. Bought it. Year later, skyrocketed 150,000 in equity, and I was like, I made the right move. But I did have to put money into it. But again, if I would have brought people, they would be like, no, don't do it.
They would have their fears projected on you would have stopped you from doing it.
Exactly. But I'm just wired to like, I'm gonna make it happen by any means necessary.
So I don't really tell people what I'm doing. I just do.
Yeah. Same here.
And because I don't want their fears to be projected on me.
Me neither. Like
that makes sense.
100%. Like once my mind is set on something, this is what I'm doing, and I'm gonna make it happen. Like you asked me before, you guys getting a lot of credibility, building the brand, getting the name out there, exposure wise with the podcast, with the show. Just had a vision, and I'm like, I'm gonna make it happen. But
think about it. You had the vision and you had the goal, right? But I could tell your personality. You planned it, right? You said, okay, this is my goal. How do I get there? Right? So I need to do this first so I can get to here. Then I'm going to do this next. And then you set yourself a goal, right?
Yeah, no, I'm very strategic in that perspective. And I'll tell like maybe 3 people about what I'm about to do, and they'll doubt me, but that's just more fuel.
Right.
And then when I do it, they're like, I told you this is what I was going to do all along.
Listen, you know what I tell people about this business? It's not a business for smart people. Ask me why.
Well, because you got to be, dumb enough to take the risk or not have a lot of fear to...
No, man. Smart people overanalyze this business.
That's true.
They overanalyze it and don't do it. So, I had a realtor, one of my realtors, great guy. To this day, we're great friends. I said, bro, we can't work together no more. You got to find someplace else. I can't give you any... don't bring me any deals, nor do I want your deals. Right? And he says, why? I said, you're too smart for this business, bro. You keep every deal you bring me, somehow or another, I got to save it at the last minute because you overcomplicate it. You scare people with your vocabulary. You scare people with your terminology. Keep it simple. Right? You're too smart for this business. So, case in point, I was the guy on the little yellow school bus. I'm a special ed kid.
No way.
To this day, I still have a severe dyslexic problem. And that affected me in many ways growing up. So, but I thank God every day I had it. And I still have it. Because it taught me one thing, how to determine who were real friends and who weren't. And it gave me so much hate in my heart because teachers would treat me like if I was an idiot, right? So when I was a kid, in grammar school, they would break up the class into 3 groups, group 1, 2, and 3. I was always in group 3, and it used to piss me off because I wanted to be in group 1. Now, those kids that were in group 1, I know most of them today. None of them make the money I make, right? Because that hate, that anger was my
chip on your shoulder.
Was my fuel.
You needed that, the battery in your back. I said the same exact thing. Look, and just knowing that makes your story even more amazing. Like, you know what I mean? Just that you didn't let anything hold you back. And I always tell people you can't make excuses. That's for the weak. You got to make it happen by any means necessary.
Absolutely. So
that's amazing. Just hearing that, you know, I didn't even know.
Nah, it's like that was my fuel. One of my fuels. The other thing I tell people is, I've been poor and I've been rich. And I've been in both rooms. In the poor room, man, everybody's just talking about each other. Or how come they can't make money? And it's always someone else's fault. It was like the teacher didn't like me or my boss don't like me, right? And my argument is...
Victim mindset.
Right, that victim mindset. Now, you go to rich people's room. What's the difference, right? You've been there. I know you have, right? We're talking about how to collaborate. We're talking about what's happening in the market. We're talking about how we're going to adjust to what's happening. You don't find that in the poor mind room, right? So get yourself out of the poor mind room. Put yourself in the rich mind room. You don't have to be rich in that room. You just need to have the audacity to be uncomfortable when you walk in there because it's extremely uncomfortable.
Especially if you feel like you're not at that level, it's intimidating.
Exactly. But in my experience, they want to talk to you. You're there, they give me the game because I'm there. I learned.
You got to be in the right rooms.
You got to put yourself in the right rooms, even though it's extremely uncomfortable.
That's the only way you're going to grow. All right, look, so much game, so much knowledge. We can keep going on and on and on for hours. Appreciate you coming by.
Yeah, man.
It's such an honor.
Thank you.
We definitely got to run it back one day soon. I'll see you on Wednesday.
Yes.
And make sure you hit the like button, the subscribe button. Share this with somebody who's on the fence of investing. Reach out to this man for
I appreciate that.
mentorship, everything that you're doing. We support. Again, we only have, the top tier guests on this show.
I really appreciate that, man.
Of course.
I appreciate you being in the same categories of people you've had on.
Yes, of course, man. I mean, again, your success speaks for you. So
I appreciate that.
Hit the subscribe button. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Let's go.
Take care, brother.